Adab and a very heartfelt and a warm welcome to each one of you present out here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to a very important and an insightful time of the day. We now move forward for the very first session of the day. But before we move ahead, my name is Varsha Singh. Happy to host you all for this wonderful day and welcoming each one of you to this one of a fine day which brings together all these industry stalwarts under one roof. We now move forward to our very first session of the day, ladies and gentlemen. A session that sets the tone for the discussion ahead. A topic which is the global rice market evolution. A subject that defines not just the economic landscape, but also the food security and livelihood of millions across the world. Over the years, the rice industry has undergone tremendous transformation, as we all know. From traditional cultivation practices to the global supply chains. This session will take us through that particular journey which will show trends, challenges and opportunities shaping the future of the global rice market. We are honored to have with us the distinguished panel of experts who will come to the stage and have been instrumental in driving this change and bringing a global perspective to India's rice story. As I take your name, you are requested to make your way to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, the first and foremost, as we all know that the topic on which we are going to talk about today is the global rice market evolution. As a chairperson, I'm going to call up on the stage the personality who is a distinguished professor at ICR-IER, is a leading expert on agricultural policy and rural development. Former chairman of CACP from 2011 to 2014, he shaped MSP reforms and market-oriented policies. He is also a Padma Shri awardee 2015. He has served on the boards of RBI, NABARD, NCDEX, and currently of KMBL and Godrej Agrovet. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Dr. Ashok Gulati. Can we have a round of applause? Moving ahead, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have on stage the personality who is the national president for the Indian Rice Exporters Federation, IREF. He has also received the National Awards for Food and Business Innovation 2025 at the Imperial New Delhi. Honored with the People Who Inspire India trophy, he was recognized for advancing India's rice exports and exporters' welfare. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to welcome on the stage Dr. Prem Garg with a round of applause, everybody. Moving ahead, everybody. We have an experienced senior vice president with a demonstrated history of working in our food and beverages industry, skilled in business development, building businesses from scratch, negotiations, and operational management, retail and FMCG. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Nitin Gupta, Deputy Country Head, Olam Agri. Can we have a huge round of applause as he makes his way to the stage? Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to call up the gentleman who is a global head of agriculture and food pricing at S&P Global Commodity Insights since November 2018. He leads global benchmarking for grains, oilseeds, and proteins, launching initiatives like the Platts Milling Wheat Marker in 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Piero Carello. Can we have a huge round of applause for the gentleman as well? Moving on, we have the Managing Director for National Cooperative Exports Limited. He is a leading agribusiness professional with more than 25 years of commodity trading, risk management, and agri-market infrastructure experience. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Anupam Kaushik. Can we have a huge round of applause as the gentleman makes his way to the stage? Moving further, everybody. We are honored to have the presence of a personality who is a Vice President of Bulk Commodities and Supply Chain in the Agri-Business Division at ITC Limited. He leads initiatives to transform commodity sourcing through advanced analytics and digital platforms. Please put your hands together for Mr. Khalid Hussain Khan. Can we have a round of applause for the gentleman, everybody? Last but not the least, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to call the gentleman who is a president of the Rice Exporters Association of India, TREA, Karnataka chapter. He is from the Rice Exporters Association, Kakinada, and we are very excited to have him on board with us. He is actively engaged in advocating for the rights and welfare of the rice exporters. We are truly honored by his presence. Can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. B.V. Krishna Rao, sir? Ladies and gentlemen, before we dive into today's first session, we have something very special coming up. And for this, I request all of you to draw all your attention to the stage. Before getting into this, may I please call up on the stage Mr. Abhishek Dev and Mr. Tarun Bajaj from APERA. Can we have a huge round of applause for both the gentlemen? May we please call up on the stage Mr. Mayank Bharadwaj from Thomson Reuters with a huge round of applause. He'll also be moderating this wonderful session for all of us, ladies and gentlemen. All right, everybody, before we move ahead with our very first panel discussion, we have a very special and significant moment in front of all of us. Today, we are not just discussing the future, we are also launching it. The BIRC 2025, the long-term vision and roadmap to Viksit Bharat 2047 represents a comprehensive vision for India's rice sector, a blueprint that aligns with the nation's aspirations of becoming a Viksit Bharat by 2047. And to unveil this visionary document, we have the set of panel on the stage, and with this we talk about not just today, but we talk about future. As you all know, that rice industry is blooming day by day, and that is what we all are here celebrating. Please give my podium to Mr. Abhishek Dev, sir, to kindly come in front and say a few words and address the gathering. Sir, can we have a round of applause, everybody, for Mr. Abhishek?
So thank you, and first of all, my best wishes to the organizers of this event, the BIRC, for this very good show, and we have all the stakeholders from the sector who are participating in this conference so as to ensure the overall development of the rice ecosystem. And I would also like to thank the esteemed panelists who are all there today to kick off the technical sessions. Altogether, around 8 technical sessions have been curated on various aspects related to the rice ecosystem. And I'm sure with the various insightful discussions through our very dedicated and experienced panelists who are the leaders in their fields, we will be able to chart a roadmap for the overall growth of the rice ecosystem. So the Viksit Bharat roadmap, which is being envisaged, and the work for that will be kicked off today from this BIRC, is to look at the 2047 vision for the rice ecosystem, where we want to be in the future, and how to ensure that the India's global dominance in the rice ecosystem continues, but we at the same time we chart a journey that is sustainable and which is also ensuring that the adequate returns from the production are shared by all the ecosystem, the beneficiaries are the farmers, the other stakeholders, all benefit from this growth of the rice trade. So my best wishes to all the organizers, the IREF, the TREA Chhattisgarh, TREA Kakinada, our knowledge partners, IRI, ENY, and also all the stakeholders who are joined together in this conference. My best wishes to all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abhishek sir, for your insightful address. Ladies and gentlemen, this particular initiative encapsulates the years of research, collaboration, and commitment, charting the path from today's challenges to tomorrow's opportunities. That is why we present you something very strong and very powerful. It reflects our collective dream of a self-reliant, sustainable, and globally competitive rice industry. So that is why we all are here cherishing this particular video, and we aim to become a Viksit Bharat by 2047. With this particular aim and initiative, we stand strong and proud to be standing here. Let us have a big round of applause as we witness the launch of an initiative that will guide the next era of India's growth story. Can we have a round of applause for this initiative, everybody? Thank you so much. And now is the time for which we all have been waiting for. Before we begin our very first session of the day, it is my absolute honor to invite the chairperson for this session to the podium, a visionary leader and an eminent voice in the global agricultural community, whose insights have continuously shaped the way we understand and engage with the rice sector worldwide. Please join me in welcoming our first session's chairperson with a huge round of applause. He is the one and the only Dr. Ashok Gulati. Can we have a round of applause, everybody, as he makes his way to the podium? Coming from ICR, IER, we are deeply honored by his presence here today. So,
thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. Let me start by complimenting the organizers here for this mega event, in particular Mr. Garg, and welcome you from different parts of the world on this International Rice Conference. I recall what India was in 1960s when I was growing. Massive shortages of grain. We were hugely dependent on the US at that time for PL 480. Something like my friends from Africa are struggling for AGRA, Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa. And India imported certain seeds of wheat and rice in mid-60s, and 3 persons, Norman Borlaug for wheat, and Bishal and Gurdev Khush for rice from International Rice Research Institute. They turned the tables, and within 5 years, India was not only self-sufficient, it was building buffer stocks. It happened within 5-6 years. Today, it's heartening to see that India is not only just self-sufficient in basic grain, but rice, it has emerged as the largest producer and largest exporter in the world. And when you say largest exporter, Indian statistics says for 24-25, more than 20 million tons of rice was exported in a global market of about 61 million tons, 1/3. USDA data, in fact, says, because they take the calendar year, it is 24 million tons of exports in a global market of 61. So that turns out to be about 39% of the global trade India is exporting. In a way, a country that faced the pangs of food security is today contributing to global food security. That's the first point I want to put on the table. We have crossed even China in terms of production, but one little thing, they produce about 145 million tons from 29 million hectares. We are producing about 150 now from roughly 50 million hectares. In fact, the latest third advanced estimate is putting the area 51 million hectares. So productivity is still roughly hovering around 3 tons per hectare. China's productivity is 5 tons per hectare on an average. that gives me a huge buffer that the technology is existing and we can go easily from 3 to 5, and actually the technology frontier, production frontier, can give you easily 7 to 8 tons per hectare with the existing technology. So for the next 20 years, we can easily be increasing production. But when you come from production, not just for India, first you have to feed your own people, and that we are doing. We are giving almost free 5 kilograms per person per month to roughly 800 million people, rice or wheat, and rice is the major chunk. That's free. So besides that, our Food Corporation of India today carries stocks which are about 3 to 4 times more than the buffer stock norm that they should be keeping. So the largest exporter, almost free food to 800 million people, and on top of that, the Government of India's, Food Corporation of India's silos and stocks are 3 to 4 times what is needed. So there is abundance. Now what happens when you are exporting? There are people who continuously import. Gulf is not suited very much for rice cultivation because of the water. Africa also struggling with water. Their irrigated area is only 5%. We have more than 50% irrigated area. They want surety that that is the first trust element, and if India announces suddenly an export ban, there was a panic, and I know my emails started flooding, people writing from Africa, what is this happening in India? Suddenly an export ban has been imposed. Then we said, the notification clearly says that if you really are in need, please write to the government, and there is a condition that government-to-government trade can easily be done. Because there was uncertainty. So to reduce uncertainty, we have to build stocks. That's the only way you can take care of uncertainty. But 2-3 things. We have to move forward from common rice and basmati rice. That story is very well known. I think for nutrition, we have to go from filling stomachs, the food security so-called, to nutritional security. The more we polish, the nutrition goes down. What are those things in which nutrition can be increased? So the next journey of Viksit Bharat to 2047 is not as much of food security in terms of availability, but it is going to be in terms of nutritional security. And that is what we should also be exporting outside. You have seen here a lot of varieties of rice, even Kala Namak rice and others, which very low GI index. So they are very good for diabetic patients. So you have number of varieties that we need to brand and properly put in the global market for better nutrition. But one more thing that is critical, as the chairman of APIDA hinted, we have to make it a sustainable journey. What do we mean by sustainability? We all know rice is a water guzzler crop. 1 kilogram of rice, as per IRI, International Rice Research Institute, consumes about 3,000 to 5,000 liters of water, depending upon where it is being grown. 1 kilogram. On an average, if you take 4,000 liters, an average 1 kilogram of rice, and even if you assume that 50% whatever is supplied as irrigation goes back to the groundwater, still 2,000 liters per kilogram of rice. That means when India is exporting 20 million tons of rice, India is also exporting 40 billion cubic meter of water. Okay? So first challenge is how do we reduce the consumption of water in rice? Because we are not very water abundant country. That's the first thing. There are technologies, direct seeded rice. I'm told there are varieties that have come up that can grow even with 1,000 liters of water per kg. We need to work on the breeding side. Less of water consumption is the first thing. Our Green Revolution belt today, Punjab and Haryana, is suffering from depletion of groundwater. Groundwater is going down by 1.5 feet every year. This can be an ecological disaster. If it continues like this, then how do we supply to the world and to ourselves on a regular basis? So sustainability, what Abhishek Devji said, I think water is a critical point that we need to do. Second, when you do the flooding of rice fields, there is methane that is emitted. And when you apply 250 kilograms of fertilizers on top of that, plant is consuming only 35 to 40% of urea, nitrogen that is being supplied, rest is going in the environment or leaching into the groundwater. We worked it out doing a research in Punjab Haryana belt. Every hectare of rice produces about 5 tons of greenhouse gas emissions. 5 tons of greenhouse gas emissions every hectare of rice. So what is the challenge to Viksit Bharat? We need to produce low carbon rice, and it should be sold as low carbon rice. That means you have to practice DSR, direct seeded rice. You have to go for precision farming in terms of more and more saving of water and how much fertilization you can give through fertigation rather than flooding the fields and throwing urea on top of that, because the nutrient use efficiency then can go from 35-40% to 90%. So we need to tackle water issue, we need to tackle air issue, and the third one, which is very, very critical, is the soil question. When we do a lot of puddling and all this flood irrigation, and at the end of the round when we harvest and do stubble burning, the soil organic carbon, which is good for the soil, is gone. Those soils become dead literally. Our carbon content in the soils is today in Punjab Haryana belt 0.3. It should be minimum 1, if not 2. That is, so we are playing with the Mother Earth. If we have to protect, when we die, either we are buried or literally, in Hindus they burn the bodies and then into ashes. So we ultimately go into Mother Earth. But what if the soil dies? If Mother Earth dies, who is going to feed us? So we have to take care of soil, water and air. This is going to be the sustainability challenge that Mr. Abhishek Dev said. And this is the journey to Viksit Bharat for 2047. One more little thing that I would say. Today, on the global scene, there was a lot of controversy in terms of food versus fuel debate. You may recall around 2000, beginning of 2000, corn prices had dipped a lot and US decided to go for putting 125 million tons of corn into ethanol. We started off the ethanol program and 20% blending in the petrol through sugarcane. And then we turned towards corn, and now we are turning towards even rice. About 5 million tons of rice is allocated for ethanol production. This issue is a little debatable issue whether food security versus fuel security. Maybe we should have a tie-up, long-term tie-up with the crude producing countries so that we are assured of the crude that we are looking for and they are assured of the rice that they are looking for on a long-term sustainable basis. My last comment is that of the three major cereals, that's corn, 1.2 billion tons of production on this planet. Much of that goes for either poultry feed or ethanol. Second is your wheat, which is about 800 million tons. And the third one, which is about 540 million tons of rice. But rice, the trade, which is roughly about 11% today, 61 million tons out of 41, 42 million tons of production. This has to go up because wheat is almost at 25% of the global trade. The trade as a component of production, so there is scope. It's a lifeline for Asia, but it is also going to be a lifeline for Africa, and the future growth of demand is going to come more and more from the African continent because the population growth is the fastest at present on this planet. By the turn of the century, 1/3 of humanity will be living in the African continent. And their soils are not as blessed and irrigation is still very much lagging behind. So they are going to have difficulty in producing enough of rice. That's where the demand is going to come more and more. For the high value, we can go to Europe or US or Japan, even explore. Philippines is the biggest importer today. But I'm looking at Nigeria and many other countries in Africa. That's where the future demand is going to emanate. And I think we will do good, both our business, but also in terms of ensuring their food security, perhaps even supply them with the seeds and other things, how best the South-South collaboration can take place, and India and Africa can be fully assured of their food security as well as the Gulf countries that I see here, because they are blessed with crude oil, which is very valuable, but they don't have enough water to produce rice, so it can be the best complementary part of the global trade. Trust is the foundation of global trade, and I think that India is suitably in a position to ensure, and hopefully our policies will be in line with that. Thank you very much, and welcome to this.
Thank you so much, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, as we all know that we couldn't play this earlier, but now let us watch the video and unveil and proudly showcase the BIRC long-term vision and roadmap to Viksit Bharat by 2047. A vision that charts the journey from today's milestones to tomorrow's aspiration. Before we dive into this, may I please call up on the stage Mr. Abhishek Dev and Mr. Tarun Bajaj from APEDA. Can we have a huge round of applause for both the gentlemen, everybody? And I request all of the seated dignitaries to kindly rise for a while and let us proudly unveil this initiative in front of all of us present here. Can we have a round of applause, everybody? A very wonderful and inspiring vision ahead waiting for all of us. A roadmap leading us towards Viksit Bharat by 2047. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Now, getting back to one of the most important panels of the day. To lead this very important discussion, ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to invite our session's moderator. And I would request all of you to please put your hands together for Mr. Mayank Bharadwaj from Thomson Reuters. And he will be taking a charge as a moderator from now onwards. Can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Mayank, everybody? Over to you, sir.
Thank you. I mean, there can't be a better panel than this. Really knowledgeable people, and they are expert in their own areas, covering almost the entire gamut of Indian agriculture, not only rice. And Dr. Gulati, being so phenomenally knowledgeable, has made my task so easy. He has spelled out almost all major important issues that we need to cover. As he mentioned, that India has come a long way in production, in self-sufficiency, and having huge export surplus of both rice and wheat. In the last 10 years, though, in the last decade, we have seen that India has made rapid strides in production and in exports. Our production has gone up by 44-45%. Our exports have doubled. A lot of people can't really understand what happened. We broadly know better seed varieties, agricultural practices, better irrigation, and also good monsoon rains. But to begin with, to understand what led to this great success story, I would request Dr. Garg to tell us what happened there. What are the main factors behind this great success in terms of production and exports?
When this production of the exports means your question, how much production?
How we achieved this a massive jump in production.
No, massive jump of the production because the farmers also they are using a lot of new technology here, and this because of that this 149 million ton production is there in India, and because of that also, and there is a surplus also every year because government also giving this lot of to the farmers to grow in some areas some different kind of crops like millet and jowar and other items. Because of that, then people's also losing their habits to eating the rice. So because of that, this little bit more surplus coming in India, like there is about 49 million ton extra stocks pile up last year in India, and this year additional. After this 149 million ton crop, you can see if total we are sitting near about 68 to 70 million ton crops. So which definitely we are looking this new more markets, and that's why we are happening this Bharat International Rice Conference, this IRF, that's why created all these things.
Yeah, that was very helpful. So this brings me to Mr. Gupta. So Nitin, what happened in terms of exports? What led to the massive jump? How did it start? 12.5 billion of exports, and we see a lot of potential further. How did it start?
So the Indian rice industry has it's going through a very turbulent times. So it's all started in 2020 when India sees the pandemic happen, right? And a lot of supply chain disruptions were there, followed by geopolitical disruptions, whether it was Russia-Ukraine war or Israel-Hamas war, or then finally Iran-Iraq war. So, and then coming on to the Trump tariff policies, which are again continuously disrupting the market, and an ongoing threat of climate change, which Mr. Ashok has also been mentioning. So despite that, Indian rice industries has been very, very resilient and staying strong. So I still remember that I was talking to Mr. Krishna Rao in 2015-16, and we were discussing that India was at 10 million tons in 2015-16. So 6 million ton was non-Basmati and 4 million ton was Basmati export at that point of time. And we used to discuss, and we made a representation to the government that how can we increase from 10 million to 16 million ton. Come 2020, when the whole world was crying for rice, thankfully India was sitting on huge surplus of rice. So our exports increased from 10 million to 16 to 17 million metric ton. And then because of certain revolution which has taken place in Indian rice industry, whether it is on the port infrastructure side or finding the right markets. So India's export has increased from 16, 17 million ton to today 22, 23 million metric ton. And it is a very important commodity in overall agri-exports basket today. So rice is contributing close to $10 billion on a total agri-export basket of, let's say, $50 to $60 billion, which is a 20% contribution to the industry. And by any standard, it is one of the largest contributing commodity to agri-export basket today. So that's the evolution of rice industry, but the challenge today is that the whole world is sitting on rice glut. So whether it is India or the neighboring countries like Thailand, Pakistan, Myanmar or Vietnam, they all are sitting on the huge rice surplus stocks thanks to the good monsoon which every origin or country is experiencing this year. And one bigger chunk of challenge is that despite all the volumes being increased, the overall value terms, the export value-wise, India's export is not increasing. And the reason being that whenever world looks for a cheapest source of available rice, India is there in the market. So India's reputation today is that we are the cheapest source of rice available to all the rice importing countries in the world. So time for us to start thinking slightly differently, and I'll just say some of the points over here. So one, there are certain varieties which India is not growing today. For example, glutinous rice. Thailand and Vietnam, they are supplying or exporting close to 2 to 4 million tons of glutinous rice from those two nations itself. India is completely out of those markets and not able to supply rice to any of those markets which are consuming glutinous rice. Second, despite having such good varieties like Sona Masuri or Matta rice or Govind Bhog rice, India has not developed any brand for these varieties so far. Whereas if you see that Thailand, Homali, Viet, Jasmine rice, so they are a brand which are known worldwide. But despite all these good varieties which are available in the country today, India is not able to export or develop a brand for these varieties. And third, there are certain countries where the other neighboring nations are having a preferential trade agreement where India is not able to export rice to those countries. So especially to the Southeast Asian markets, which is Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia. So these countries all put together are importing close to 5 to 7 million tons of rice, where India is completely out of those markets into these nations. So the breakup of 22 million tons of rice out of India is that 12 million ton roughly is going to Africa, 5 to 6 million ton including non-basmati, it is roughly 6 to 7 million tons of rice going into Middle East market, and balance 2 to 3 million tons is going to rest of the world, which is Europe, which is Oceania, and which is US market. But definitely there are countries which are in Far East, as mentioned by him, so South Korea, Japan, Russia, these are the countries where India's presence is very negligible. Southeast Asia markets are there where India's presence is definitely not very great. We are a minuscule player in those markets, and a lot of African countries are there, though Africa has a total potential of importing more than 17-18 million tons rice, because apart from India, Thailand, Vietnam and other neighboring nations are supplying rice to those countries. So India has a clear-cut potential for increasing rice exports from 22 to 30 million ton, and this 7 to 8 million ton of gap can easily be fulfilled if we start working on these directions.
Great, that was really nice. And I remember Dr. Gulati talked about trust, and we have seen only in 2022 there was a ban on broken rice exports, and immediately after that there were a slew of export curves, right from non-basmati to basmati. A lot of people struggle to understand why did that happen, because there were sufficient stocks. Those export curves have gone now, but talking about the potential of realizing extra exports of around 8 to 10 million tons, do you see India's flip-flop on trade policies or sudden export bans, at least, or curbs, that kind of harms in the long term, harms the country and unnerves global buyers?
Let me take you back when common rice was totally prohibited. Early 90s, only basmati was allowed, and the philosophy of the country was, how can a poor country export basic staple to the world? So when liberalization was taking off, we fought with the government at that time that liberalization cannot be just for industry, it has to be also for the agriculture. and the first thing was to open up exports of rice and wheat. And that when it happened, literally rice exports doubled. And government was surprised, everybody was surprised, but the domestic prices started going up. So when domestic prices go up, that's when the political sensitivity comes, and then there are some restrictions that are posed. Even this 2022, the uncertainty that was created because of the Ukraine-Russia war, we had the stocks, but still government became nervous that the prices may go through the roof. And that's why, but there is always a window, so there is a long travel that we have already done. And given that we are sufficiently surplus in rice, I think we can have sometime long-term contracts with those countries which are going to be importers in a major way. As I said, trust is very critical today. Trust is being tossed upside down in trade policies because of US policies. You can see that disruption that is taking place. India should stand up and say that at least in certain commodities which India has been exporting, it will be a reliable supplier to those who are in need, and refine and go further in terms of improving the quality and productivity. The price, the more you are going to be exporting in a limited market, the international price is going to come down. So international prices are likely to be the domestic prices here. So remember that there is a theory of optimal export tax, but I don't want to get into that. But productivity, we have ample opportunity to increase productivity. We are still at 3 tons. So as you improve productivity, the costs will come down. And then you can supply to the world cheaper and larger amounts. I think that's the magic formula that we need to follow. We haven't adopted hybrid rice to the extent that China has. China's productivity is high because of hybrid rice. They are getting 5 tons, we are getting 3 tons. Their area under hybrid rice is more than 50%, ours is less than 15%. So that's the, I think a lot of genetics has to work on getting hybrids into the game, and then we can supply to whosoever wants even 30 million tons at a competitive price.
Yeah, indeed, actually. I would like to ask, pose the similar question to Piero. How does it look from there when the world gets a lot of surprise from India, when there are sudden export restrictions? How does it look?
I mean, I don't think we can just limit ourselves to India and export restrictions. When it comes to food, most countries tend to focus on their domestic population first. And it's not really for me to comment specifically. What I would say is I think that we've just touched upon one of the crucial points in my view, which is looking at a target of volume in exports, so an objective to export 30 million tons, is an incomplete statement, because I think it all boils down to price ultimately. Because why would you export 30 million tons at a loss, which would then have a negative impact on production, which would then increase volatility in markets, which would be counter-cyclical, right? So I think the investment in the yield is definitely a way forward. But I think the world's getting more connected, so most of the origins are fighting for similar destinations, with some exceptions. I think the value lies in information nowadays. The day of traditional FOB to SIF trades are long gone. I think market participants require more data, more information. Of course, that's sort of the business we are in, so it's normal, I would say that. But really the ability to have price transparency across the board is what will allow any country, India in this case, to invest more steadily and to have a better view on the future.
Yeah, indeed. I have a question for Khalid, since Nitin talked about value-added rice, branding of rice, having premium grades for different world markets. How do you see that? How plausible is that, and what do we need to do for that? Because at times, not at times, currently largely we are volume driven rather than value driven. So for value addition, you have led it at ITC. What are your recommendations?
Thank you, Mayank. I will take the example of what ITC has done in a very basic staple like whole wheat flour, which we call it as atta in India. Nobody would have thought that we can make almost a 6,000 crore brand in atta. What it requires is the consistency in quality, understanding the consumer requirements, and sticking to the trust that you create in the consumer's mind. That is what we have achieved. But it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of trust building with your consumers. So I am very, very sure, as ITC and on behalf of the Indian rice industry, it is very much possible to create powerful brands, not only national but also international. As my fellow panelists were speaking about, giving examples of Thailand, Homali rice, or a Vietnam DT8. Similar thing can be replicated in a much bigger way. And we need not restrict to the IR64 or a very basic varieties. Each state, today when we were in the main hall, we were going through the several performances from each state. All of us know that each state is having one unique variety of India. So if in India there are 29, 30 states, each state is having a very unique variety for which Indian government is working very, very hard in getting those geographical indication tags to those varieties so that each of these varieties can be marketed in global markets. What we need to ensure is the consistent supply of the quality inputs to those farmers so that the yields can improve and we can bring down the prices. For example, today if I talk about those Gobind Bhog rice, if suddenly there is an order for maybe say 5,000 tons, suddenly the prices will start touching the roof because the production of these varieties is limited. What we need to do is to move from the basic or the FAQ kind of rice varieties to the niche varieties, the short grain aromatic rice varieties where there is a huge potential. So if we were to really see the success story for the next 22 years and to make it as a Viksit Bharat, what we need to achieve is this additional 10 to 15 million tons of rice exports should ideally be driven by these rice varieties. In addition to that, a lot of organic rice, a lot of EU compliant rice, that is where we have the potential. Our farmers are capable. There is a lot of government support which is there for the farmers and for the industry. Not only that, sustainable rice platform is something which is the need of the hour globally. And for sustainable rice production, in order to grow it in a sustainable manner, as Dr. Gulati also mentioned about the direct seeded rice, the alternate wetting and drying, sustainable rice growing techniques, that is a need of the hour. Not only it will reduce the pressure on water, it will reduce the methane emissions, it will reduce the carbon emissions, and we can export a low carbon rice to the global markets. We can do that, but trust, patience, consistency, and a lot of support to the industry is required, which will make it happen.
Great, yeah. You talked about GI rice and a lot of government initiatives about rice, how to help farmers raise production or export premium grades. So I'd like to request Mr. Anupam Kaushik if he can talk a little more about the government side, the whole push for specialty rice for export markets and also GI tagged rice.
So GI tag rice is certainly a new and upcoming area where a lot of international attention is now being drawn on, and I think people are now waking up to the idea that India is not only IR64 or not only Basmati, but a whole bouquet and a whole basket of varietals which are anywhere from 500 years to 5,000 years old seed legacy which is being handed down to us. I mean, India has got some rice varieties which could be as old as more than 3,000 years old in existence. And I think the government, both at the central level and the state level, are cognizant of this idea that India needs to value its varietal legacy, which is medicinal almost in value in terms of either its glycemic index or its other nutritional qualities. So that's one area which is now being focused at by various stakeholders in both state as well as the central government focus. My sense is that this area is going to grow big because as people are associating the normative rice with kind of the lifestyle issues such as sugar and all. So people are seeking more and more low glycemic index rice varieties, and India has abundant of such varieties to offer. So my sense is that my sister organization, Bharat Beej Sekas Sangh Limited, is already working with IRI to create blueprints, the DNA blueprints of some such varieties, and then create varietal rice portfolio to offer to farmer producers and create a global as well as national supply chain for those varieties.
Yeah, it's just amazing, the rich biodiversity and such old seed varieties that we have. So would like to know more about it from you, Dr. Gulati. So.
You know, it's two ways to proceed further towards Viksit Bharat 2047. One is the low carbon, that is the environmental sustainability. We have to ensure that. But the other thing, something has happened because of the intensive cultivation and because of the fertilizer pricing policies that we have. Farmers are applying a lot of urea, DAP and muriate of potash, but they are not applying enough zinc or boron. So our wheat and rice have become deficient in zinc. Today the deficiency of zinc is about 30% in wheat and rice compared to the wheat and rice that we used to consume. Now this deficiency of zinc, because our soils are deficient in zinc, leading to deficiency of zinc in wheat and rice, is causing stunting amongst children. Zinc is very critical for your development, brain development, especially children. Prime Minister actually released about 35 varieties of wheat and rice which were zinc rich, but nobody knows where to get it from. So that's where ITC and others have to come to brand it that this is zinc rich rice and this is zinc rich wheat. These are the basic staples. So we need to go towards environmental sustainability but also nutrition augmentation in the staple crops itself.
Right, absolutely. Khalid, would you like to add to that? Actually, how companies like ITC can do that?
So, in fact, we are doing a lot of work with the farmers. So, under the ITC Mars initiative, wherein we have created 2,050 FPOs, the farmer producer organizations, wherein we are associated with more than 2.2 million farmers of India across 15 states. not only in rice but also in many other agri-commodities. What it really helps is to use the collective power of the farmer-producer organizations, where the farmers come together and are able to do the sourcing of these agri-inputs. And with the help of ITC, what FPOs are able to get their hands on is the availability of the inputs, whether it is the climate resilient varieties, high yielding varieties, heat resistant varieties, as well as the relevant agri inputs. So as Dr. Gulati mentioned very rightly about the zinc enriched varieties, we have already started a lot of work in this space, wherein almost 5.3 lakh acres across 8 states is under the crop development programs of wheat, rice, millets, pulses and oilseeds, wherein we are providing these nutrients to the farmers through the farmer-producer organizations and are being given crop advisory free of cost, so that the farmers are aware as to which inputs will lead to the betterment, and their incomes will also double and they will get better realization for their output. So that is something which we have been doing, but yes, as Dr. Gulati mentioned, a lot of knowledge transmission needs to happen to more and more farmers, and I'm sure with the kind of public-private partnerships that are coming up, this will be possible very soon.
Thanks for that. Turning to Mr. Srinivas Rao, we talked about, right from the beginning, we talked about India's rapid strides in exports. I do not know what's the situation of late, but we would read and write about logistics, about the infrastructure, about port infrastructure and bottlenecks at port. Since you know the entire East Coast so well, could you please tell us, are we really geared to handle extra volumes that we are aiming at?
Yeah. Good afternoon, all of you. I think we are all late for lunch, so we should be very quick in whatever we discuss. I think we are running behind schedule. As per the panelist's question, I think India has done a great job. I think we have been following Indian rice for the last 20-25 years. And we were at 4 million tons when we started exports. Now we are close to 22 million tons. It was a long journey. In this long journey, the stakeholders, apart from the farmers and the rice exporters, Government of India through EPEDA was also helping us at every stage to reach out to every market possible in the world. I think reaching out to 170 countries is not an easy task, but in this whole process of reaching to the top, we have lost certain things that we have been able to build up a top line as in a balance sheet. We have forgot our bottom lines. So I think so. Per unit realizations have gone down considerably over the last couple of years. For that, I think now the country has to start looking at branding rice, developing other variants which will fetch higher prices, per unit prices like Japonica or sticky rice or GA tagged rice. I think the scientist community in India should make research towards that. And as far as volumes are concerned, the logistics are concerned, yes, at 20 million tons, we have logistics which are quite sufficient. I don't say we are at absolute top class because we use close to 50 different ports in India, whereas competition use only 2 to 4 ports but get equal volumes. So I think so their volume side we have to take care a little bit more. On the eastern part, we have a couple of ports which need infrastructure improvements wherein we can reduce the cost of shipment. And I think in this whole process of reaching to newer heights, I think policy side also in the last 20 years we had 2 flip-flops we have done regarding the food inflation which has happened in India. So I think so we are coming back to the world stage and competition is also very strong, because in the last 2 years when India was out of market, countries like Pakistan and Thailand have also made big money. Now they are fighting back not to lose their share. I think so. India, it's tough time, and India is at a lowest numbers. The world trade is in a glut. I think we need to all sit together, see how we can improve our volumes and the margins.
Very nice. Thanks so much. So we are talking about finding new markets or focusing on markets that are kind of underserved. So here I'd like to know, the key markets that we are trying to focus on, and especially what's the demand like in Africa, how is it going to pan out in the next 5 years? And this question is for both Nitin and Pero. Yep.
So barring these short-term disruptions, we are of firm belief that the demand will continue to stay strong for Indian rice, that is for sure. And as I mentioned, there are markets which are completely untouched by India, or where we hardly have any presence over there. So be it on the Southeast Asia side, or Africa, or Middle East. So clearly there are markets which definitely we need to cater to. One thing I would like to talk about is on the logistics side. So India's, one thing is very clear, that we have done very good as far as improving infrastructure and logistics is there. I still remember that pre-COVID, India was majorly doing rice exports from Kakinada and Kandla. And today we are very happy to say that apart from these two big bulk ports, there are 3 more ports in India where India is now exporting rice, whether it is on Odisha or on Maharashtra, or states like Calcutta. So clearly on that side, India is doing great. But as far as logistic is there, so India's logistic cost is approximately 7 to 8% of the total value. Whereas countries like Thailand and Vietnam, so the logistic cost is 2 to 3%, primarily on account of the water transport which they are doing today. Because most of the mills in Thailand and Vietnam, they are on the banks of river or the sea. So where their logistic cost is extremely, extremely low. And India has to see, our Prime Minister has a vision that we are now improving on the water transportation side. And I'm very sure that if India is able to bring down the logistic cost, that is going to be one big game changer. So definitely that's one aspect of it. And as far as markets are there, clearly I laid down that whether it is on the Far East side, which is South Korea, Japan, Russia, or on Southeast Asia side, Philippines imports more than 5 million tons of rice every year, where our share is not even 5 to 10% today. And so on with countries like Malaysia and Indonesia. Africa, again, a big chunk of another 4 to 5 million tons of rice can definitely be exported out. India is doing very good on basmati as far as Middle East and North Africa market is there, where we are doing more than 3 to 4 million tons of basmati exports. And clearly we have a potential to do another 1 to 2 million tons of non-basmati exports into those countries. So a clear-cut gap of 7 to 8 million tons can easily be met out with these countries. So that's how we can take the number to that level.
And freight costs will not be substantially higher for these countries that you have mentioned.
Yeah. Barring, I think even barring West Africa, which is also not very high. So these, today when we are exporting it to China or any of the Southeast Asian country, today the container freight is almost as good as negligible. It's not even $2 to $3 per metric ton. So freight cost is negligible, and India should definitely leverage on that part.
Sure. Thank you. Piero?
Yeah, not much to add other than, as I said before, I think it is very dangerous to focus on volume as a measure of success, because it comes at a cost potentially, right? So in my experience, price should be the driver, and a market like India that has a structural export surplus of 20 or 30, whichever it may be, cannot expect to do 20 or 30 million tons of niche varieties or of new countries. So to me, it's all about essentially focusing on the core. And I guess the core must be Africa. If you look at the statistics, that's where the major growth is coming from. And then, of course, differentiate in terms of varieties, in terms of destinations to add value. But in all of this, keeping at heart the importance of knowing what is the price of all these destinations, what are the prices of all the varieties, how do those tie with the cost of production of the country, in order to make it sustainable, not just from an environmental perspective, but from an economical. And if I can just add on the environmental perspective that was touched upon, I think that's a given. It has to happen, and the markets will force it to happen. which again will add another element of cost, right? So to me, the focus really should be on yield, on differentiation, and on price transparency around the world in order to find what are the best options for the industry.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
On this environment and cost, two comments. One, volume versus price. If India is going from 22 or whatever 30 million tons, you are going to depress the prices further. There is, in theory, I didn't get into details, when the marginal revenue starts falling, you should stop there. And that is where the optimal trade tax, export tax, which industry many people may not like, but you look at when the export ban was restricted, ban was put in place, the exports dropped to 16 million tons, but the revenue loss wasn't there. It was more or less, so the price went up.
Yeah.
So that's one part of the story. The second, why the prices are low. One, of course, the production is ample, but secondly, India subsidizes in a big way. Rice means water, water means electricity, groundwater, and then fertilizers. India's urea is almost 80 to 90% subsidy. Water and power is free. So this, in a way, brings down the cost in one sense, but disturbs the environment because they are overusing urea. So then it disturbs the environment.
Or water.
So if you correct the pricing of power and fertilizer, whatever you want to give to the farmer, give directly to the farmer, but correct the pricing of this, then I think you will have the environmental benefit as well as the price may lift a bit.
So I couldn't agree more, and although I can't speculate on matters of what is the best policy, my point stands that the key there is the price transparency in every element of the chain in order to come to a bottom line.
That's right. Mr. Kaushik, yeah.
See, the problem that India is facing is a very serious proportions, because if you look at India's production and marketable surplus in the indica varieties, so there are approximately 4 varieties of rice globally traded. One is the indica variety, in which the India's rice of IR64 type is part of, and all other 4 major competitor countries are also in that indica variety, which are Thailand, Vietnam, Pakistan, Myanmar, and sometimes even Philippines also come in the picture sometimes. So the total global trade of rice across 4 categories of indica, the second one is aromatic, the third one is japonica, and the fourth one is glutinous and specialty rice. So the total global trade is around 52.5 million tons approximately for the year 2024. Out of which the indica variety was around 33.6 million ton, aromatic was around 12.6 million ton, japonica was around 5 million ton, and glutinous was around 1.3 million tons. So they put together 52.5 to 53 million tons. Now, if we look at the India's marketable surplus after removing the annual domestic demand both for food and non-food, India is left with a marketable surplus of close to, in a range of 35 million tons to around 44 million tons for last year, and this year it is around between 43 million tons to 51 million tons. So the indica variety of 52.5 million ton is around 33 million tons. So India has a marketable surplus which is more than the global demand of indica rice. That's the only India. But now looking at the remaining 4 countries, they themselves have the rest of the world in the surplus, the marketable surplus in the indica category is between 28 to 30 million tons. So if we add the marketable surplus in indica category of India's marketable surplus and the remaining 4 countries which are competing with India, the total demand, the total supply is more than 200% of the annual global indica demand, which means that the export can happen only at the marginal cost of production and whoever is offering marginal cost of production will eventually take the market share, and the rest will have to follow. So at one point of time, India was the lowest marginal cost of producers when others did not join the party, which happened when India put a ban and the prices went through the roof. I mean, if you look at the price history for 2011 to 2022, the prices were trading between a band of $360 plus minus 60. So the lower side 300, 310, on the higher side 420, one point of time. But when they broke through the 420 ceiling, they went up to 600 plus level. And it resulted into $8 to $9 billion or $10 billion of gain to the competing countries who actually moved in to fill the gap that India vacated. And it gave them a phenomenal push to increase their production. And now we are facing a situation where the production has gone from 497 million tons to close to 545 million tons. So close to more than 10% rise in 5 years, but the CAGR of demand growth for last 3 decades has been around 0.7%. So we are facing a genuine situation that the production surplus in these 5 countries which are producing indica is much in excess of the sustainable CAGR of demand growth. So I don't know what solution will be available to meet this problem.
Fascinating. I have a question for Khalid. Dr. Gulati touched upon it briefly in his address. India has a huge domestic market, 1.4 billion people, and we have seen what has happened with wheat and rice both. Both exports were banned. How do you see domestic consumption and when you have to compare rice versus wheat?
So while I will touch upon your question after maybe 10 seconds. So while we were listening to Anupam, we are saying that 550 million ton is the kind of production. The consumption is also roughly around 1% lower than that. Now 1% translates to around 5 to 7 million tons. Now the geographies which are producing rice, whether it is India, Thailand, Vietnam, Pakistan, Cambodia, Myanmar, these 6 major producing countries, and maybe say Indonesia and other countries also, 1% is something which can easily be finished if one of these countries or 2 of these countries face any weather related challenges. We cannot forget 3 years back we were having droughts. India was having drought situation. Thanks to some of the wonderful work done in terms of climate resilient varieties, government promoting all of that. So we are walking on a very tight rope. 1%, if India loses 10-15 million tons, will be moving out, and we will see a situation where the production will be almost touching the consumption, or again India will be in a position to again put a ban or restriction on the exports. So right now we are talking of surplus because that surplus has got created because of 3 continuous years of good monsoons. Good monsoon not only in terms of the quantity but also well spread across all the major paddy producing states. Coming to your question, if I talk about 150 odd million tons, around 120 million tons is the consumption. I'm talking about food, feed, and now fuel also, because 5.2 million tons has already been allocated to for ethanol, and where there has now, in fact, government has made it mandatory that all the ethanol manufacturing units will have to compulsorily use 40% minimum of the rice for producing ethanol, and that is reflecting in the prices what is happening to maize. We went on saying that the paddy area should be moving towards maize, and that is what has happened in states like MP. But now that is reflecting in the 30% lower prices than minimum support price. And who is suffering? The farmers are suffering. So this is a continuous cycle between wheat, paddy and maize, which will continue to happen. Very rarely we will see a situation wherein an equilibrium is established between all these 3 commodities. If we are seeing what is happening in maize, we might be seeing similar situation maybe in wheat. If we don't start exporting and we continue to have our own buffer much higher than what is required, then we will see a similar situation much sooner, maybe if three good monsoons, more and more climate resilient varieties, farmers adopting better technologies, we will be in a situation of surplus grains like what we are seeing in rice today. So 30 million tons is what is surplus. That is the reason we can aim for a 30 million tons export easily without affecting the price situation in India. Caveat, the monsoons should continue to be normal.
Thank you for that. Since Mr. Rao, you reminded we need to wrap up because we are getting late. We started late, so why don't you tell us about the figure that Khalid mentioned about 30 million tons of exportable grains and how we are going to do that. Are we kind of, prepared in terms of our infrastructure?
I think this 30 million will send shivers in our competitors, majorly Thailand and Pakistan. So aiming 30 million, I don't think so. It's not a bad idea, but I think definitely we can target such a figure by Viksit Bharat 2047, but might not be immediately. I think my idea should be to work towards the bottom line rather than the top line. I think we should concentrate on working on varieties which bring more value for the country. Then at the same time improving the volume of the export. That's how I look, that's how India should plan for itself in the next 20 years. I think we have done a good job. I think we should continue doing this good job. By 2047 at least we should talk about 30 million tons of exports.
Yeah, that was very fascinating, hardly surprising though given the expertise and knowledge of each one of you. Thanks for your time and thanks for making. Yeah, I know we started late, but yeah, yes, Dr. Garg.
I think we are not going to wait up to 2047. And I can challenge this India going to be next 3 years 30 million ton or maybe before.
In the next few years.
Yeah, because there is a potential is there and there is a big demand, and because rice, Indian rice, now if we can see our African friends, they like the quality and they like the taste. Now if you can see before, about 4 years before, 3 years before, there is a $50 to $60 difference in Indian price and Thailand price. Always we are selling cheaper, $50 minimum from Thai parboiled rice. But right now India and Thailand is the same at par prices. Even if you can see Indian prices are even last month we seen $5 to $6 higher than Thai price. So still we are exporting and we have the room to export different variety. Definitely I agree. We have to see different varieties, high value additions. So definitely we can increase and we are going to achieve the 30 million ton very soon.
We are going to achieve this 30 million tons target very soon. That's a very fascinating way to end it. So thank you very much, all of you, for making it. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all the panelists, all the speakers, as well as the moderator. Can we have a huge round of applause for each one of them who are present on the stage? I also request all the speakers to kindly come forward for a group photo. Let's do it together. And with this, I'd like to tell you all that we are breaking ahead. A small break would be there for the lunch, and we'll be resuming the session 2 of the day sharp at 3:40. And that is why I have asked you that please be here by time so that you do not miss the essence of session 2, which is on its way. I request all of you to kindly proceed towards the lunch areas and be back sharp at 3:40 so that you do not miss the session 2, which is going to be truly insightful for all of you present here. And all the speakers to kindly move towards the speakers lounge. And with this, see you all at 3:40 p.m. Thank you.